We're making an easy throw quilt today. It's called Bunny Tracks, and it's a fun quilt-as-you-go project. You can stitch, quilt, and finish all in one go. Valerie Dawn here. Grab some charm squares or fabric from your stash and let's get started. I picked up a couple of really cute packs, fat quarters, and that's what I'm going to use to make this crib size quilt-as-you-go quilt. Now, if you want, I've got a pattern link below. That's the throw size. You make it exactly the same as the crib size. It's just one row wider so that it's a nice throw size. And also the pattern, they're 5x5 squares we're going to cut out of this. So if you want to make if this is from a charm pack, from Charm Packs, it's perfectly suited to charm packs. And so let's get going. I'm just going to cut these into the 5x5 inch squares I need. And that's the really easy part. It's all very easy. This is a very easy quilt. I'm going to show you some super tips on how to make this quilt-as-you-go crib quilt or throw quilt. I'm going to piece together the 5-inch charm squares for each one of these rows separate. Just make each one of these rows laid out the way you see it in the pattern. 1/4-inch seams, and then we will just press toward the darker fabric on all of them. That will give me the alternating colors on each row, and then when we do the quilt-as-you-go, we're going to place each row and quilt it to the backing. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to stitch them together with 1/4-inch seams. All 8 squares stitched together. I'm just going to press them so all of the seams are going to go in the opposite direction. There, that's our first strip, and it's ready to quilt as you go. Another great tip, I had made all of the strips ahead of time. Just label them with a little piece of tissue and pin it on 1 through 10 so they don't get all mixed up, and then you'll just have no problem at all piecing them in the right sequence. Now this is my quilt batting, and it's an 80-20, which means it's 80% cotton, 20% polyester. This will take a fair amount of heat. To prepare it, I like to run some hot steam. I'm just gliding the iron over it, and you'll see how it takes the wrinkles out of it and also shrinks it just a little bit, because the cotton frequently will shrink, especially first time in the wash. Because there's some polyester in it, it can melt. But again, I'm not putting the full weight of the iron. I'm just gliding it. Avoid polyester batting for quilt-as-you-go. You want to iron the pieces as you attach them. And polyester can very easily melt and stick to your iron and make a really big mess. This is the quilt backing that I have prepared. It's a 42-inch wide fabric. If you can find 44, I recommend it. But I'm using this quilt as a stash buster, and this was the best selection. Lay the backing on top of the batting and smooth it all out. You can use some spray-on adhesive fabrics glue if you want. I find that this cotton fabric, just by friction, stays stuck quite good to the batting. I've turned it all over again, so I'm looking at the batting side. That's my backing. I've got this ruler here so that I can pin into it. You could use fabric spray adhesive. I don't happen to have any, but I'm going to place these special safety pins. You can use regular safety pins. I don't recommend straight pins because they'll come out and you'll get poked with them as you stitch. And then as I stitch the rows on, I can just easily remove them. I have a couple of quilting rulers under here. This is the best surface I have to work with, is my wide ironing board. Let's just make some measurements here. This is a 2-inch border. And so let's say it's 2.5 because we need room to attach the binding. And these are 5x5 charm squares, which are 4.5 finished. So we want to make sure when we attach the first row that we leave enough space to apply the binding on the edge. I have squared off my edge, so I know this top edge is straight. The whole backing I made 56 inches, and the quilt itself is 51, so that gives me 3 inches of salvage on either side, so I've got space to work. So I have marked a straight line along here. I just going to make sure these rulers are underneath. Give me a nice solid surface there. I'm starting at the bottom of this quilt. And so this square is my bottom right. This binding is 2 inches. So I need to make sure that's at least 2 inches. And I think I've actually made it 3. A square ruler is really good for making sure your quilt stays square. I've just drawn a reference line here, which is where the backing, that's the edge of the backing, nice and straight, and I square this up, and then I've drawn a straight line all the way across and squared it up with the other end. I know it's run off the edge of the camera, but it's squared up at the other end too. I'm not going to attach the binding until I have all my rows attached. This is my first. I'm just going to line the edge of that up with this nice straight line I've drawn, and I'm going to make sure I have my 2 inches on either side. Now I've assembled the second row as well, and this is it. So there's my cream and green and cream, and then the blue, pink, and green. That one is positioned right here. Now we're going to start sewing and quilt as you go. Flip those over, this one on top of this one. Line those seams up. They don't have to be perfect. They are going to be within, 1/8 of an inch of each other. It will be just fine. You know how I like to fuss about the seams? They are going in opposite directions. Now I'm going to pin them all in place, because if I was just making a placemat, it's a small piece of work. It's easy to bring over to my domestic sewing machine. But this is a bit more, this is wider, and so can shift more as you move it. And I just want to make sure these are anchored. I'm also going to place straight pins along here, because this is the edge I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch through all layers. Choose a bobbin thread that matches the backing, because this is going to be completely visible. The top doesn't really matter because that's going to be inside the row as you stitch them, but this is going to be visible on the back. So I chose this beautiful powder blue that matches the blue in my butterflies. I like to use quilting gloves because when you are handling a large piece of sewing or project like this, it's slippery under your hands and it can be hard to handle and hang on to. Just roll the rest of your quilt up into this side to hold it out of the way. There's more than enough space in this sewing machine because it's not that big a quilt. Now, if you look at my walking foot, this is my 1/4 inch seam on this walking foot. So I'm going to stitch along here 1/4 of an inch through all layers. Let's get going. And I'm going to stop my needle in the down position and let the walking foot do the work. You don't have to pull or tug. I'll hold my seam down so it doesn't turn over. Are you excited to see how this turned out? I am. I'm also going to take these out though because I'm get ready for the next row. Ta-da! Let's see, how did this turn out? Beautiful. Look at that. That's the moment I love. Everything stitched, pressed, and quilted all at once. I'm just going to give this a light press to seal that seam in place. And we'll be ready to build up the next row. And I also want to show you There's our nice quilting line on the back. This is row 3, so I've pieced it according to the pattern, and it's going to fit right on here. Pin it here and stitch again 1/4 inch. Are you ready for the reveal? Let's see how it turned out. So nice. Look at that. What do you think? I never get tired of seeing these rows joined together. We have 10 rows in this bunny tracks quilt, or if you're making the throw quilt, each one of them is done just as simple as that. Here's another tip I'd like to show you. You see that the bottom bobbin thread is hanging there. Now, I'm not going to have the binding covering that up. I'm putting on a narrow border around this, and I don't want this thread to unravel or to ravel out. So on this side, just pull that. I don't do a back stitch. I just start stitching. Just tug on this one and pull that bottom thread right up through. And I just tie a little knot so that it doesn't slip through the other side. And then I will snip it off. Leave about 1 inch or so, and then we'll hide that underneath the binding. That's the easiest way to finish off those threads. Now that won't come loose on us. This is a really useful tip. When you bring this over to the sewing machine, I'm down to the last row. Roll all this bulk up on this side and on this side as well. And it doesn't matter if you're starting out, the bulk will be on this side and the smaller end will be here. You can easily feed this through your sewing machine. And the other tip is make sure you have nothing at the back end of your table so that this can just flow off the back of the table and not get bunched up against a wall or something that you have on the desk. You can do a quilt-as-you-go with a rather large quilt. Now this one's a crib quilt, just another couple of rows and you would have a throw quilt. And the other thing that you can do is these are 5x5 charm size squares, but you can just upsize those. You can have 6x6, 7x7 if you're cutting from fabric. You don't need to stick to the 5-inch squares. And that will just upsize your quilt without doing anything different technique-wise. Just look how nicely this came together, and it's so fast to do. There's the quilt back. It's all done. I'm adding the binding the same as the rows. I've just cut strips, splice it. This is the edge, like the long edge first, and I'm just going to stitch that a 1/4 inch. Flip it open and press it, and then I'll do around all 4 sides. And that's all there is to it. We have a lovely border now for our quilt. It's such a great feeling when you put that last stitch in your quilt. I got the binding all done, and you can see with a nice, very careful stitch in the ditch, you can barely see that line of stitching right in here. And it's very tidy on the back. I hope you really enjoyed making this with me. This is a technique I wanted to try for a long time. This went so fast and it turned out so lovely that I'm going to do some more of these. If you'd like to see how I finish the binding, watch this video next. Be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more Quilt-as-you-go projects. Happy quilting!